This is my Skeleton Ship Commander deck. Tap it, and put -1/-1 counters on things. This is one of my win conditions. It has Wither, and whenever a creature an opponent controls with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, you may return that card to the battlefield under your control. More Wither. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put a -1/-1 counter on each non-black creature. More -1/-1 counters with Soul Snuffers. When Soul Snuffers comes into play, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature. And then I'm using Infect creatures because Infect works like Wither. And whenever a source deals damage to Reaper or Shieldred, that source's controller gets a poison counter. So it's pretty much almost unavoidable. You play this card, somebody's going to get a poison counter. Icarats has Infect. When Icarats enters the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter. So you start the clocks on everybody with Icarats. Blighted Agent is just a good Infect creature because it is unblockable, and if you put +1/+1 counters on it or pump it anyway, it gets really out of control. We got a Ravenous Chupacabra, blows something up when it ETBs. We got Proliferate, Thrumming Bird. Whenever Thrumming Bird deals combat damage to a player, you proliferate. Proliferate your -1/-1 counters, Infect counters, Loyalty counters, Charge counters. That's basically the idea of this deck. Have all kinds of different counters to proliferate. Same with Gilpact Informant. When it deals damage to a player or planeswalker, you proliferate. Flux Channeler. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, proliferate. Shadow Mage Infiltrator. Whenever you deal combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Etched Oracle. When you have this on the battlefield, you can pretty much remove 4 +1/+1 counters from this Etched Oracle to draw 3 cards every single turn. Evil Twin. Make a copy of something, blow it up the next turn. Going into some of the cards that I have in here that just support the deck. Core Tapper. Put a charge counter on target artifact. So you kind of tick up the clock on certain things. Trinket Mage. Pretty much always going to go for an Everflowing Chalice with this. Put that into play. Once the Everflowing Chalice hits the battlefield, this deck kind of goes off. Another trick card I throw in here is kind of like a trick up the sleeve. Steel Hellkite, just attack, deal some damage, blow a bunch of stuff up. Ulamog Ceaseless Hunger. This helps out with the mill win condition. Comes into play, exile 2 target permanents when you cast. Indestructible. Whenever it attacks, defending player exiles top 20 cards of his or her library. Spark Double. I play this card with Teferi, and if I have Chainveil out, whenever I activate Chainveil, both Teferis will pretty much always have a loyalty counter on it to activate the Chainveil, so it goes pretty much infinite with the Chainveil, with the Spark Double. Teferi, we all know what he does. Mostly you just use it to untap 4 target permanents with the Chainveil, or get the emblem, and you can activate all your planeswalkers on your opponent's turns. And 4-player game, that kind of means a lot. Liliana Vess is probably my favorite planeswalker because You can use it to go search for stuff if you need to. And if it's mid-game to late game, you don't have any other win conditions that you can play, and you just ultimate neg it, take everybody's creatures out of their graveyards. Usually people will just scoop, or you're going to probably win the game. Tamiyo the Moonsage. Mostly this is in here for the emblem, so you can, whenever you cast whenever any card goes into the graveyard from anywhere, it goes directly back to your hands. So you just cast all your spells over and over again. We go into our Jaces. I have Jason Genius Mind Mage, pretty much in here for the card draw. Jace Wielder of Mysteries, another win condition. Really comes down to it, you can use this to mill yourself out. Another Jace. Have it in here for the draw. And then the 0. Target player puts the top 10 cards of his or her library in your graveyard. Part of the milk win condition. With all the card draw, you can actually get all these cards pretty much every game if you draw all the right stuff. And we got Jace Beleren. Got draw cards on here. Ultimate neg, mill somebody for 20. Jace Arcane Strategist. It's good for the draw. Probably gonna get something different to replace this eventually. Different Jace. Something that has a little bit more something to it. And we got spells that reward us for having Planeswalkers. Jace's Triumph. Draw 2 cards if you control with Jace Planeswalkers, then you draw 3 cards. Liliana's Triumph. Each opponent sacrifices a creature if you control a Liliana Planeswalker. Each opponent also discards a card, so they reward you. We go some enchantment combos. Crumbling Ashes. At the beginning of your upkeep, destroy target creature with a -1/-1 counter. Combo that with Blowfly Infestation. Whenever a creature is put in the graveyard for play but had a -1/-1 counter on it, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. So, if there's a whole bunch of Thopter 1/1s or Drakes or whatever, you blow them all up and they're all gone. Free from the Real. Pretty much this goes with the commander. This is you get this card in your hand early in the game. That means you're probably actually going to play the commander. Get like 5 or 6 islands on the board. You could just annihilate people's creatures with Skeleton Ship with Freed from the Real. Well of Ideas. This card makes the deck go off. There's drawing 3 cards at the beginning of your turn, every turn. Does a lot. Soul Ring. Everflowing Chalice. Multi-kicker has charge counters on it, so you can proliferate this and just have a huge mana rock. Chain Veil combo for Teferi. Golden Urn. Get this up to like 20 or 30. Somebody can swing to try and kill you, and then you can just sacrifice it and get 30 more life. Nihil Spellbomb. So if you're milling somebody and they got a bunch of graveyards shenanigans, you just cast Nihil Spellbomb and or sacrifice Nihil Spellbomb and blow up their graveyard. Exile their whole graveyard, and then if you want, you can draw a card too. Grind Clock, and get this up to like 10, 15, 20, then just start tapping it to mill people for a bunch of cards. Wishclaw Talisman, kind of a cool little tutor. Just remove a wish counter, tutor for whatever you need. Heliophile has Sunburst. Get this Heliophile up to like 20, 30, maybe even 40 damage. One shot somebody for 40 damage with Heliophile. Mana Rock, Dimir Signet. Darksteel Ingot, Mana Rock. Traumatize. You mill somebody for half their deck, and then you just start using your Planeswalkers to mill them for 10 and 20. Take a player out pretty quick. Or you just take them out with Mind Grind after you play Traumatize. Mill them for, of course, that's each opponent reveals cards from his or her library until he reveals X land cards and puts all cards revealed this way into his or her graveyard. X can't be 0. So if X is 10 and you just traumatize them for half their deck, then that means the other half of their deck is about to go bye-bye. Diabolic Revelation. A lot of the times I'll tap out all my mana and Diabolic Revelation for like 8 and tutor up 8 cards and put them all in my hand and then use them to combo out and play 5 or 6 Planeswalkers in one turn. Diabolic Tutor, another tutor card. Probably use that to get Liliana Vess and then play Liliana Vess and get Diabolic Revelations. And get stuff to protect Liliana Vess. Necromantic Selection. This is always good. Just blow everything up, take the best creature and put it on your side of the field. Black Sun Zenith. Play this with Necroskitter on the battlefield and kill everything, even creatures that are indestructible, and then everything dies, and then everything comes under your control because of Necroskitter, but before Necroskitter goes to the graveyard. Stolen Identity. Use this with something that has Unblockable or Fear, which I use in my deck, and then make copy tokens of Gilpact Informant or Flux Channeler and just have a whole bunch of extra proliferation power on the board. Mystic Speculation or Poor Man's Top. I like it because it's not as much as a card as you play top and everybody immediately chooses you as a target, so you could play something like this, essentially do the same thing and not draw as much attention to yourself. Treasure Cruise. I run a whole lot of instants and sorceries in my deck, so if I draw a Treasure Cruise, usually I'll have like enough cards in my graveyard that I could just play it for 1 or 2 or 3 and draw 3 cards. Got Keegan's Scheming. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put any number of them into the graveyard and the rest of the top of your library in any order. Trickery Charm has a whole bunch of text, but the main thing I do is I look at the top 4 cards of my library, then put them back in any order. Anticipate. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one in your hand and the rest at the bottom of your library. We got Steady Progress, proliferate and draw a card. Instill Infection, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature and draw a card. Here's one of my counter spells for the deck, Fairy Trickery. Counter target non-fairy spell. That spell is countered this way, removed from the game instead of putting it in its owner's graveyard. The exile a spell. Fuel for the Cause, counter target spell and proliferate. Into the Royal, bounce target non-land permanent. And if Into the Royal was kicked, you draw a card. Murder, destroy target creature. Doomblade, destroy target non-black creature. Turn to Frog. Somebody attack with something, you just turn it into a 1/1 frog and block it, and then it dies. Blue kill spell. Another blue kill spell, Reality Shift. Exile target creature, its opponent manifests top card of his or her library. And we got Grim Affliction. Put a -1/-1 counter on a target creature, then proliferate. Clock Spinning. This card can get out of control. Usually I use it for Everflowing Chalice. But you could use it with a Planeswalker to ultimate net, so you can do an ultimate neg. But you can just use all your mana, clock spinning like 5 times the first turn around. Just bide your time, go to your next turn, clock spinning for 8 times. And then just use. Usually, you have the card. If you're doing that, you have the cards in your hand to abuse all that mana once that third turn comes around, second or third turn. Cyclonic Rift, of course, the best for last. Just bounce everybody's permanents. And then the lands I use a Reliquary Tower. Usually I use Diabolic Revelations or something to get that as soon as possible and play it for my land for the turn, and start drawing as many cards as I want. Interplanar Beacon. Whenever cast a Planeswalker spell, you gain 1 life. Karn's Bastion. You can pay for it to tap to proliferate if you need to. And I use an Evolving Wilds, a Temple of Deceit, Scryland, a Dismal Backwater, and a Skyline Cascade. Then a bunch of islands and swamps. So the basic idea of this deck is to have several win conditions and just make power plays. So that's my Skeleton Ship Commander deck. It is freaking awesome.